Welcome to another episode of How I'm Building This, where we interview startup founders that are in the thick of building their businesses. We learn from their mistakes and get practical tips on overcoming challenges. Today we have Eziah from Mend. Eziah, how are you? Thank you so much for joining.
Prateek, thank you for having me. I'm doing really well, thank you. It's a beautiful day here in New York City, so I got up super early as a part of my routine, did all my wellness stuff, and I got off to a good start today. So thank you for having me.
That's amazing, of course. Eziah, before we jump into the business, would love to
hmm
learn more about you. Who is Eziah? Where did you grow up? And what really got you into corporate strategy?
Yeah, so I'm Canadian by origin. I live here in New York City and have for now 2 decades. I've actually lived longer in New York City than I have any city in my life. But I grew up in a small town called Kingston, Ontario, which is east of Toronto, for those who don't know Canada well. Fairly idyllic upbringing. I have three brothers. We were very involved in sports. I played basketball at a national level in Canada, and had just a really great youth, full of friends and lots of sporting activities, and just a great childhood. And I went off to do my MBA. Kind of moved into the Toronto area, where all the family is now. Then I got really into strategy and innovation. That's really kind of what pulls my heartstrings professionally. Got recruited by Citibank to work here in New York. I spent a number of years there in the kind of the strategy side of things, leading strategy and a lot of product development and new white space things. And have been in strategy really since then, and have been in startup world as well as large corporate world. Went to Deloitte and led strategy at a kind of a global level, really focused on innovation because that's really what my passion's on. So steeped in strategy and innovation, and have a significant amount of experience in startups at all levels, from very early concept and idea on a napkin to, okay, we've gotten to an inflection point in growth, and how do we position for all things going forward.
That's amazing. Was there, was there like a pivotal moment growing up when you were like, hey, you know what? One day I might start my own thing.
I think it's been part of my DNA, to be frank with you. Something's always pulled at me. It's interesting that out of the four brothers, and there's four of us, three brothers, four of us altogether, every single one of us is doing something entrepreneurial.
Oh, cool.
Um, Even though our father, worked at Pfizer for almost 20 years, and he was a career kind of big company guy. So something was intrinsic in us that pushed us all to kind of do the entrepreneurial thing. And so I was very deliberate about going to work in large companies, because I really wanted to understand what it takes to operate in that environment and what big companies do well. But there was always something pulling at me to kind of, I've got 1,000 ideas a day, and I knew that I had to do that, even as challenging as it is. It was something I had to do.
Very cool. So I of course saw that on Crunchbase, that you all raised a Series A last year. What tips do you have for like founders that are looking to fundraise? And not only from a 2023 perspective, but also now where money is definitely tight.
Well, it was tight then. It was tight the year
Yeah.
before. So we were raised in a very difficult environment. Look, ultimately, I think most founders know this. Investors are looking for proof points, and they're
Yeah.
looking for different proof points depending on the type of investor that they are. So later stage growth equity guys are looking for very different things than earlier stage kind of seed company folks are looking for. So it's really important to understand, and you've all heard this before, understand who you're targeting as an investor base, and the proof points that will give them confidence that, if you're earlier stage, that you've got the core of something that addresses product market fit,
Got it.
uh, market potential, the uniqueness of your idea and your IP, all the things that they look for earlier stage. And as you mature as a company and get to Series A and beyond, what they're really looking for is proof point that you can scale, that you can scale the business. And then once you get even later stage, that, okay, now you can scale, but it's the margin and profitability of the business something that is attractive. So it's important to understand kind of that curve and that trajectory, um, and where you fall on that. And then it's always about proof points. And obviously, there's a lot that goes into. It's not just kind of the proof points of the business. They're investing in you. They're investing in
Sure.
your team, and having the right set of folks on the bus that will inspire confidence that not only are these people, have a good knowledge base and experience of what they're doing, but that they're really anchored in deeply in the passion for what they're building. Investors want to see that, and it comes through.
Yeah.
When you have a founder that really loves what he or she is doing because they work maniacally on it. I work maniacally on that. I think everyone sees it, that I'm giving it my all at all times, and that makes a big difference.
I see that. So, what's really tough about being a founder that has raised venture capital?
Well, as soon as make that decision to go down the road of institutional funding, people call it making a deal with the devil, and there is some truth to that. In that, VCs are on their own timeline and
Yeah,
horizons in terms of when they're looking for their fund to mature and do their next thing and all that kind of stuff. So that creates incredible pressure because they're expecting a level of financial performance that they want to see because they have their own set of motivations. And yet, so much of the job of a founder is to continue to build those proof points. And a lot of times, most times, the trajectory of a startup is not linear. It's
sure.
almost never linear. It almost always comes in step function changes where there is a breakthrough, you had some technological breakthrough, or there's a market event that is a catalyst, or you've gotten to a critical point in some of your proof points that now the market starts to embrace what you have as a solution. And so there's always a tension between how fast the VCs will want you to grow and mature as a firm because they're thinking about the next round of financing and whether you have enough of a runway and all that kind of stuff. And your need as an entrepreneur for more time.
Sure.
Just give me more time because I swear I'm onto something. I swear this is the right idea. I swear this is going to be the next big thing. Just need more time. And that's really hard. It wears on you as a founder because you're working your tail off
Yeah.
and you've got this constant runway looming on you and you've got the pressure of the VCs and you love what you're doing. And that's where the passion and the love for what you're doing is what you got to stay anchored in, because the nights will be long. There'll be really tough days ahead, and if you're anchored in what you're doing, you will start to see those successes, and hopefully they will start to accumulate, and it'll be one of the most rewarding things you've ever done.
That's for sure. I'd love to get your take on hiring as well. So, from your perspective, when you were hiring your teams early on compared to now, what has changed?
My job has become increasingly, as we've grown as a firm, about a lot of the people dimensions of having a business. I know it's like as a trained business person, I always knew that was a thing, but it becomes really you become quite acutely aware of it when you're a leader of a firm and you
Yeah.
start to grow and you realize just how many people challenges and people dimensions come into play. So I spent a lot of my time on culture and people. And one of the things that it's become really apparent to me is recruiting. Now I'm going to be a lot more involved in bringing in the right profile of person into the firm that really has the DNA of what it takes to be in an uncertain environment that's moving quickly. We move fast, and there's a lot of demands, and not everybody can handle the pressure of the demands as well as others. And so
Sure.
there's a makeup. I'll give you an example. One of my enrollment coordinator. She's a superstar and she's always got a bubbly attitude and she enrolls patients at a 90% plus clip.
Amazing.
And she far outperformed that we had a underperforming one and would came under pressure and was constantly kind of stressed with the kind of the challenge of it. Once just flies through effortlessly the exact same job. And so paying attention, I want to now kind of model kind of what are her attributes? What is it about her that makes her successful in that role? And then how can we recruit similarly for, the open roles that we have that are doing the same thing? So a lot more attention to not just the hard skills. I know we hear that a lot,
Mhm.
but the profile of the personality that will thrive and fit in a dynamic, fast changing, uncertain pressure cooker of an environment, and take extra time with that. It will, like the wrong person on the bus will cost you a lot of time, energy, and resources to unwind from, and will slow down your trajectory. And the right person will propel your trajectory. And I've seen both in my firm. I've seen superstars that take their own initiative. They've got the right attitude. They bring the right energy into the workplace, and the others that are the complete converse and opposite of that. So I have to be very mindful of that. And I'm putting more and more energy into it.
That's awesome. So, how do you judge for attitude, for energy during your recruitment process?
People can say all the right things in an interview, right? So you have to kind of look at the body of work,
Yeah.
which I think reflects. It's not just the body of professional work and what they've done, but it's a lot of like when I have a conversation in my German interviews, I say I want to get to know you as a person. Like you've met the kind of the hard skill requirements and experience requirements. I spend time with them in half an hour, getting to know about their life. What are their passions? What do they spend their time? And you infer from that. It's intuition. There is no hard science that I'm aware of. There are behavioral interviews and people use those. And I think even in behavioral interviews, there's a way to kind of finesse answers that'll give the right answer. It's a feeling,
I
but it's
see.
something that I spend time on in terms of really getting to know who the person is, and developing an intuition for them as a human being.
I see that. That's awesome. Isaiah, on your website, you call yourselves the Healing Company.
Mm-hmm.
What is the pain you're solving, and for whom?
Yeah, so healing is physical. We break down physically, emotional, because we have a lot of emotional traumas as we go through life, psychological, spiritual. So, in the broadest terms, healing is biopsychosocial and all of those things, and often quite intertwined. And we all experience that as human beings. And I believed, as I thought about kind of macro level positioning of a brand that could play a very important role in a space that nobody owns, I thought, Jesus, healing, and it came to me as a result of personal experiences, healing could be quite profound, is a brand that's synonymous with healing, because that's very emotive, it's very powerful. We all need emotional or psychological, spiritual
Sure.
support. I started in the physical space as a result of personal injury that was slow to heal. My mom, two-time cancer survivor, and I saw the trauma she went through and her healing process. And my brother, who fell from 80-foot waterfall and had numerous surgeries to repair his body.
Gosh.
He was lucky to survive. And I saw in each one of those contexts, I thought to myself, gosh, a lot more could have been done to support healing. From a physical standpoint, in terms of how each of us was being nourished from a nutrition lens and
Sure.
nutrition perspective. Now there's a huge body of science that we've helped to publish on how important nutrition is to healing, but also the psychological, spiritual, emotional lens, because traumas are, my brother, if you look at his arm, it's like a shark took a bite out of it. No surgeon is going to think about the spiritual, psychological, emotional consequences of him going through life disfigured. My
Yep.
mom now has two mastectomies. She has to look herself in the mirror as a woman with two breasts that are gone. What are the healing aspects of that?
Sure.
And so we've developed both a modality on the nutrition side of things to support fuel healing, but we also have a care plan that is care pathways and digital delivery that is all about kind of the rest of the whole body, whole person approach to healing. We're going to increasingly infuse things in it that provide that emotional, psychological support that so many people need when they're going through a significant trauma. So that's how healing came to be, and we think it's a huge space.
That's amazing. So, how do your prospects find out about you?
So we do a lot of outreach we work a lot with medicine. So outreach
Sure.
to doctors, hospitals, surgeons. We're at conferences, we're speaking. I do a lot of podcasts like this because I really want to get the word out. I think it's important to do that. So that's the primary way. And now we're starting to reach a critical mass where our surgeon partners, doctor partners are starting to advocate for us. And we get
Wow.
starting to get inbound inquiries of saying, hey, Dr. X, we just got one from Dr. Wickline. He's one of our partners. He's got some of the best numbers nationally on his infection rates, readmission rates, and so on and so forth. He's been using our platform, is seeing an impact. He told another surgeon, he reached out, now he's going on platforms. So ultimately, if you're driving results, that's going to speak for itself. And we are driving results, and we're starting to see that inflection of referrals. We have an announcement that's going to come out later today, actually, probably after this call, announcing 15 new surgeons moving onto our platform, and that's a pretty
Wow.
big step function change for our firm. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I did, of course, see on your website that you have some very, very interesting customers, right? I mean, right from amazing sports teams to like health systems. How did you win such large customers?
Yeah, well, let me start with professional sports and
Yeah.
military. We have now 45 plus professional sports and collegiate teams using men for healing and recovery. And then we've got the U.S. military. In fact, I just got a request for proposal from them for a quote, which they're going to be about to place an order on. The special forces,
Wow.
conventional forces, as well as now the VA requested information. It's all been word of mouth on those two constituents,
Wow.
professional sports and the U.S. military. It's been completely word of mouth. We don't market to those populations, and it just continues to grow. And that's because our products are steeped in science and having an impact. So those constituents and those client sets are would just been fortuitous that they keep speaking amongst each other and saying we use men for healing. We really focus on getting out to medicine, and we think that also plays a role because our emphasis on going through doctors and surgeons that are highly credible, like we're used by some of the leading hospitals out there. In orthopedics, we're deployed at HSS, we're deployed at Geisinger and Penn.
Wow.
That also has an influence because when people see that these our men products are being used by really esteemed institutions, then that I think carries a halo and a weight where others start to look at us very seriously.
That's amazing. So purely from like a channel perspective, are you saying that referrals seem to work the best for your business today as opposed to a marketing effort?
Look, we do marketing. Like I said,
Yeah.
we're at conferences and we
Yeah.
get leads and referrals there. But there's no question that in a medical community that's generally pretty cynical,
Got it.
getting a referral from a peer doctor that says, "Hey, this stuff is real," carries so much more weight. Than they're generally skeptical of industry in
Okay.
medicine because they have industry pitching them all the time, and so they get a lot of inbound solicitation. And so when you can get some of the, we now have, some of the really well recognized orthopedic surgeons out there at a national level using our products and willing to say that they're using our product, that is really, but it took us a long time to get here. You don't get there from day one. You have to be patient, build the credibility, have real solutions, and win their trust and their confidence. And then that starts to happen.
Yeah, that's fair. So, I mean, would I be correct to assume that that partnerships could also play a big role for your business?
Oh, no question. There are, huge medical device companies out there that we could partner with to get our nutrition distributed, and so that's something that we're certainly looking at and open to. There are significant ways through partnerships that we can get the product out there, and now that we've got really robust science, we're going to put more energy on kind of distribution channels.
Yeah.
Sign a major distributor deal in the spine space,
Okay.
and that's going to get us in front of a lot of spine surgeons. So yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So, when you think about partnerships for your business, how do you ensure that the partnerships are working for, of course, both parties?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about designing. So there's always a temptation, and when you're negotiating a deal, to get a little greedy and try to extract every little penny of value
Yeah.
for your own firm and kind of put that into your agreement. And I'm always very mindful that the relationship has to drive value both ways and commensurate value. So if you go in, I got a set of core principles that there's like 6 of them that I use whenever I'm going into a major strategic relationship. It's about trust, open communication, reciprocal acknowledgement of value, humility, so on and so forth. And I always discuss that with a partner.
Got
That
it.
here are the some core principles, and I ask them for their feedback. Do you agree with these? Is there anything you would change? And we agree on those core principles before we enter into a strategic relationship. And then we review those from time to time. I've done that with partners. I've got a big partnership in Australia. And I say, hey guys, this is what we signed off on collectively. These are the core principles of our relationship because things sometimes get thorny and tough. And when they do, you can always reflect on those core principles that you set out at the beginning of your relationship to say, this is what we wanted our relationship to be anchored in. And I think that applies equally well to personal relationships.
Yeah,
I have a core set of foundational values that you can reflect on and anchor back to when things get difficult.
that's amazing. Um, what are some of the tactics today that y'all are using that y'all are either testing out or ones that are already working to ensure that your name is being, of course, spread out more?
Well, so we're very deliberate about investing in science. So we've got multiple clinical studies advancing, and that keeps that gives us the credibility in the scientific community, medical community, that the Mend is a company that's serious about science. So we've got multiple studies advancing on the market distribution side of things. We are really focused on quality execution, so that we've got enough demand now in contracts that if we do a really good job of delivering value against, like I just mentioned, 15 surgeons coming on our platform, these 15 surgeons will influence others for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
And one of the largest client that we have, Ortho Lone Star, is the third largest orthopedic provider in the country. And there's enough volume in that relationship, just that one contract, that men can be profitable.
Well,
And so we do a really good job of delivering value to Ortho Lone Star that sets our future. And so we're really focused on execution and brilliant execution. Now, we will be at conferences. I'm speaking in front of 300 surgeons in West Palm Beach in T-minus like 8 days. So we'll
amazing.
continue those types of things where we have our name out there and we're building eminence, and we're building awareness. But really, brilliant execution is what's going to determine our success, because we have enough business under contract that we'll be a successful company. We do a really good job of delivering against what's in front of us.
That's awesome. How do you define brilliant execution?
Well, ultimately, it's about the happiness and satisfaction of your client.
Yeah.
So we deliver clinical care to patients. Our patients are raving about our program, so we're getting a check mark there, and we're doing really well. Our clinical care team is being rated 9.3 out of 10. The verbatims on the program are absolutely amazing, and our client to date, being the surgeon and the doctor, is pleased, and that's why you're seeing some of the adoption and growth. Now, brilliant execution through the lens of my VCs and my board, because they also want to see the underlying metrics and economics
For
of
sure.
the program. So we have done a good job of delivering care, doing a good job of making our surgeon partners happy. Now we got to show all the optimized revenue. We can drive the margins and the revenue and the scaling. So brilliant execution is a combination of making sure that your client is happy, but then the underlying fundamentals of the business, your scalability of it, the industrialist nature of it, the hardened nature of it is also in place. So we're working on both of those things.
Understood. Isaiah, as founders, we've made a ton of mistakes. What are some of the mistakes looking back that you wish that you probably shouldn't have done?
Yeah, and I don't know that it's necessarily a mistake. You have certain intuitions and hypotheses
That's
when you're a
true.
founder about
Yeah.
where your market might be and what your value prop might be, and as you do the sets of things you do to prove that out, you learn that maybe the opportunity is not there and it's somewhere else. Or we use the term pivot. I think we overuse it, but you learn and you modify and you adapt to the market. And so I've had a number of those things. I initially had the thesis that, hey, if I'm developing a physical healing modality, where are those patients? Well, they're all commonly in physical therapy, right? What a focused, great channel to go through, because physical therapists need more revenue. The patient is there. They've got a trusting relationship. And I try to go through that channel, but realize that the low level physical therapist, the actual physical therapist, him or herself, the ownership understands expanding the business model and bringing in new products. But the actual physical therapist is resistant to doing anything other than clinical work,
Sure.
because they view it as selling and they don't want to sell. And so that became a very challenging go to market for us. And so I still believe physical therapy will embrace nutrition for healing, because the evidence is so strong now that they're abdicating their professional responsibility if they don't use nutrition as a modality in healing. They must, because the science is so strong. So that's one. We also learned that we identified an opportunity for comprehensive perioperative care rather than just being the nutrition company. When now we have a whole digital platform, so that was a significant sea change for us. So that's happening every single day as we kind of read the market and we adapt and respond to kind of where we think the market will embrace us best.
It's awesome. Isaiah, what I mean, like, if you look back now, what is like the scrappiest story, that you might have, as in while building Ment?
Oh my God, there's so many, right? Very early on, we're going through a raise. A company, a VC fund had committed capital to us, and for a variety of reasons, they fell through as a firm.
Okay.
And here I am. I've already made um, financial commitments. I've hired people. I've staffed up. I've done a bunch of things because I thought all this capital was coming in, and I'm midstream executing. And this VC firm is not able to honor their commitments to us. And so that puts me in a really, really difficult bind. And so it was really scrappy for me in a very short period of time to identify someone to step in and take the place of that fund. Can you imagine? I did it in less than 60 days.
No way. Wow.
Found a new investor to step in. Now, some of it was fortuitous in terms of connectivity, but to be able to do that, where we would have been in a very, very difficult situation had I not been able to find someone to step in and take the position of that fund. So there's been, lots of situations where we've faced significant challenges, but we've responded well to them.
That's amazing. One of the things that's not spoken out loud is about managing mental health as a founder. How do you manage yours?
Thank you so much for asking that. I think it's a topic that needs to be discussed a lot more. This is a really, really, really difficult job, being a founder of a startup, and it's incredibly taxing on you physically, but also emotionally and psychologically. So you really have to think about putting yourself in a situation for success, whereby you're thinking about this as being your best optimized self, for like as if you were going to train for the New York Marathon. You would exhibit a whole bunch of behaviors and habits to be ready for that incredibly taxing event. With a startup, that's literally every single day. And so I take it very seriously. So I'm up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Typically now 5 a.m. The very first thing I do is take a shot of olive oil because it's part of my nutrition regime. Then I do a 25-minute, 30-minute meditation that's guided with my headphones on. It's actually a trance meditation. Then when I'm done with that, excuse me, I start to get ready for the day. And as I'm getting ready for the day, I have in the background wellness stuff playing, and it's typically affirmations. And it's all sound woo-woo, but I'm absolutely convinced in the science of getting deep into the subconscious. And then I have got a very specific nutrition regime that I follow that is very deliberate about the sets of nutrients that I'm getting in my body with prebiotics and probiotics and certain vitamins and minerals and so on and so forth. And then I'm exercising pretty much every single day.
Well,
Almost not a day goes by that I don't exercise. So it is really a mind, body, spirit approach to ensuring that I am resilient. I've built resilience to face the challenges and the hardships of doing this job, because it is very, very difficult. It's very lonely, as you said at the outset, because there's extraordinary pressure on you as a leader to not only lead people, because that has a lot of complexity to it, and you're going to face all kinds of people challenges, but then facing the pressures of constantly thinking about raising capital, hitting those proof points, meeting the demands of investors and the board. It's a tough job.
yeah, I can imagine. Well, Zai, this has been so much fun, such great learning. How can folks keep up with you? How can folks keep up with Mend?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, and thank you
Of
for doing
course.
this, because I think helping entrepreneurs is super important. We're mend.me in terms of our website. I'm Eziah at mend.me. If anyone ever wants to reach out to me, I'm also on LinkedIn, and would be happy to stay connected to the startup community.
That's amazing. Zai, thank you once again for
Thank
your
you.
time today. This is awesome.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you.